Now let's look at war communism. War communism. So war communism, it was an economic policy or strategy, by Lenin to promote communism by nationalizing everything in order to support the civil war in Russia. So that was war communism. So according to Lenin, this war, this was not dictated by economic needs, to say maybe because Russia was facing some economic challenges. According to him, no, but this one, it was dictated by the military needs. So therefore, it was called war communism, to say now we are going to nationalize everything because this is the military needs that we have to meet currently. So this war communism, it had a number of activities. So the first one was that industries were under the government. All industries in Russia were under the government. Secondly, the peasants were encouraged to keep only enough food, while the surplus, it was surrendered to the government. So you can see there, the peasants were given land, but this time around they have produced, and the government is telling them to say, all right, you have produced, you only keep what is enough to keep you for this year until the next harvest, but the rest surrender it to the government. So you can see there how the peasants felt. And also there was the banning of private trade. No private trade to say, all right, I have this commodity, let me go to the marketplace and trade. No, it was the government to do the trade and not private trade. So you can see the situation there, and that was called war communism. Everything, nationalizing every industry. This war communism, it had some effects. It had effects. So let's look at the effects of the war communism. So number one was that it promoted laziness among the people, since they lost their property and even the sense of ownership. There was no sense of ownership of a factory or an industry, a company. So people became lazy to say, all right, the government is going to provide us with everything. And also, it led to low industrial production. There was low industrial production since people now were lazy and they were working for the government things. So, you know, the government things, they don't have the owner. So ownership there was lacking. Then people were lazy, and as a result, when they were told to work in those government industries, people were not so productive. As a result, things were not okay and there was low production. And also it led to poverty and starvation in Russia because of low production. So there was poverty and starvation. Another effect was that it led to inflation. Inflation as the Russian currency became valueless. So the buying power of money became valueless. As a result, there was that high inflation. There was need for you to produce a lot of money to buy few things. Also, another effect of war communism was that it promoted strikes among the peasants, also the industrial workers, and many other people. So people were striking because things were taken from them, especially the peasants were saying they were told to surrender their produce. So it happened that there was also an uprising somewhere at the naval base, which was called the Kronstadt, the naval base there. So the settlers there, they uprose because they were opposing the forced acquisition of grain. when the troops were sent there to say, you have to surrender everything to the government. Then the people they boycotted they boycotted there against the government there. So we see that it promoted strikes. People were striking because things were not okay on nationalizing everything. So there was now what was called the new economic policy. The new economic policy. So this new economic policy, it was another economic policy by Lenin. You know, war communism, it was facing some challenges there. It was facing a lot of challenges. People, the majority, the peasants. Remember, the peasants were the people who gave Lenin support to be in power. But this time around, they are the ones who are also complaining to say, Lenin, what have you done now? So he changed to another policy, and this one was called the New Economic Policy. Now, this one, it had a number of elements, the New Economic Policy. Number one, the peasants, they did not have to surrender all their food, all that surplus, no, but only 10%, 10% to the government, and you remain with everything. And again, the peasants, they were encouraged to work seriously, because we have said that since the government was taking the ownership of everything, now people were becoming lazy, and they didn't want to work for the government. So the government, again, under the new economic policy, Lenin said, no, the peasants, please work very hard, because now the government will only be getting 10% from all your produce. So if you produce more, it means it's only a little that is going to the government. So peasants were encouraged to work hard under the new economic policy. And also, trade with the West was encouraged or was resumed. Remember, there was during that nationalization, it meant that the companies, the factories were all taken for the government, and there was the cut-off of trade with the Western countries. So we see here under the new economic policy, trade resumed with the Western countries. We talk of France, we talk of Britain, and many other European countries. And also, this new economic policy, under the new economic policy, the government maintained only large industries, but the smaller ones, which had 20 or less than 20 employees, they were given back to the former owners. So we can see there the government revised to say, no, we made a mistake in the war communism. So now these smaller companies, you can get back and carry on, employ those people. So the big companies only, they will belong to the government. So that's what happened. They are under the new economic policy. So this time around, we have to look at the achievements and failures of Lenin. As you know, each and every leader, he has to have some achievements or some strengths as well as the failures. So Lenin, he was a great leader, we saw to it. But still more as a leader, you need to have the strength and the weaknesses, so that maybe the subsequent leaders or the current leaders, as we grow for leadership, we have to know that some people somewhere, the great leaders, they were called the great leaders of the world, but they failed in some parts. So let's look at Lenin in Russia. In his achievements, number one, Lenin established the first communist state in Russia. So the first communist state in Russia, it was established by Lenin. So it was a plus there. And another achievement of Lenin was the new economic policy. So this one, it was a remarkable success because it helped Russia to recover from the worst effects of the First World War. The new economic policy, much as this new economic policy, it came after making that blunder of the war communism. Then it was reshaped to say, now we have the new economic policy. That one, it assisted Russia so much. So it made Russia to come back to revive its economy. And thirdly, his achievement was also the communism. Communism itself survived in its early stages due to his ability. So he was a good leader who managed to make communism survive. And also, formation of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, it was under Lenin. So Lenin did much to change the Russian society. But as we have said, every leader, he has successes as well as the weaknesses. So where did he fail? Where did Lenin fail? Lenin failed to create the classless society in Russia. You remember, when the Bolsheviks, they gained power, remember the November Revolution after they got power. Then later on, they created dictatorship and forgot the promised classless society. You see what happened immediately after they did not get the majority in the Duma. You see what happened there. You can remember to say what happened was that Lenin, he thought of making his party, the Bolsheviks party, to remain in power. So he cancelled, he dissolved the assembly in its first meeting. So that one is an element of dictatorship, and it was not like in the way to create a classless society. And also he failed in the sense that there was no respect for human rights. Remember, he created the secret police that terrorized and suppressed the opposition. So everyone who was in opposition to Lenin, he was sent to the labor camps. And religion was abolished. Remember, no religion. People were just required to work, and disregarding religion. And also he failed greatly to achieve worldwide socialist revolution because he wanted to achieve a communist revolution worldwide. So he failed to achieve that one. Although he tried to establish the government, the socialist or communist states in Bulgaria as well as Hungary in 1919. But he failed still more to cover worldwide with his ideas of communism. Also, Lenin did not leave a clear succession plan, much as he was respected. Lenin was respected as a good leader. But after his death, we saw the power rivalry that was there within the Communist Party. The reason was that there was that failure to say, after I'm gone, I'm not the leader forever, but after I'm gone or I step down, then this one has to take over, or in our party, to choose the next leader, we have to follow this way. He did not leave that succession plan. Therefore, it was a failure. As a leader there, we are reminded to leave a succession plan. Who can be the next leader? How should we choose the next leader? Like that. That is the succession plan where Lenin failed. We have just mentioned there that Lenin did not leave the succession plan. Hence, it led to the power rivalry. People were struggling for power, were fighting for power. That is rivalry. Then there was power rivalry after Lenin's death. So in 1922, what happened was that Lenin he was hit by stroke in his left side. Then it left him again speechless. It left him speechless, such that he was unable to speak again. So a good leader, a great leader, is hit by that disease, unable to speak. Then he was incapacitated. He was unable to carry out the duties of the state. Then, after that, what happened was that the country was run or managed by the triumvirate. A triumvirate is a council of three members. So it was managed by a council of 3 members. So who are these? So there was Trotsky. If you can remember, we mentioned this Leon Trotsky as a very, very intelligent man, intelligent army commander. And Stalin, there was this Stalin, Joseph Stalin, and Bukharin. So since Lenin's illness, a power struggle developed on who is going to succeed him. So this time Violet was there, but still more, there was to be one to lead. So there was that power struggle on who was to succeed him. So the major struggle, it was between Trotsky and Stalin, Leon Trotsky and Joseph Stalin. So Stalin, he was nicknamed the Man of Steel, the Man of Steel. And he was born as Joseph Jagashvili in 1879 in Georgia, that is Russia. So this Man of Steel, Stalin, he went to a theological seminary to be trained as a priest, but he was expelled because of his political beliefs. Then he devoted his time in revolutionary activities and ended up as an editor of a newspaper, a revolutionary newspaper, which was called the Pravda in 1917. So that was the brief background of Joseph Stalin, who was competing with Leon Trotsky for the leadership after Lenin died. So furthermore, this Stalin, we have said that he went to the seminary, he was expelled, then he became the editor, but frequently he was involved in violent bank robberies. See, the shadow priest there, after being expelled, now is involved in robberies there. But his aim for robbing the banks was to raise the party funds, So since Lenin did not leave a successor until he died in 1924, Stalin and Trotsky, they split over the policy direction to say, what do we do now? Now that our leader is dead, what do we do? So Trotsky, he had his views. So the views of Trotsky were that socialist revolution, they had to spread outside Russia if communism was to survive. So Trotsky, he said, no, if we are to keep this communism alive, we have to keep on spreading it to other countries or worldwide. So this theory, it was called the permanent revolution. Permanent revolution, to say it starts, then it spreads to other paths, like just the wildfire. But many members of the Politburo is like the parliament itself, they did not, they were not engaged. So in that way, we are saying many members, but many members of the Politburo they were not engaged, or they did not support the ideas of Trotsky. And they did not want Russia to be engaged in more other conflicts with other countries. So they were not for that view to say we should be involved in the conflicts with other countries. No. Russia must concentrate the things of Russia alone. So Stalin's belief in socialism, believed in socialism in one country. So his belief in socialism in one country, it seemed more practical than that of Trotsky. So Trotsky ideas were somehow rejected by the members of the Politburo, who resisted to say, no, we cannot manage to engage Russia in more conflicts with other countries. So Stalin was favored by the people there. And again, Stalin, he believed that communism should concentrate on building Russia. So that was Stalin. He said, no, communism must be able to build Russia alone. So thus communism did not have to spread outside of Russia to survive. Only communism has to make Russia great. So that was the belief of Stalin. So this view had the majority support in the Politburo. So on the other hand, it meant that Trotsky was unpopular among the ordinary members, and his ideas were rejected by the Politburo. So even the ordinary members of the Communist Party, they did not like the ideas of Trotsky. So Stalin, as a general secretary, he used his position, on the other hand, to appoint and promote his supporters. So he was the general secretary of the party. So he used his party position to appoint his supporters to top positions so that they support him, support his ideas. So what happened was that one by one, all his opponents were voted out of the Politburo, out of the parliament. As a result, he was gaining more power. So by 1929, Stalin had become a virtual dictator, a total dictator of Russia, because he started one by one flushing out all the opposition. So he became the sole dictator. So let's look at how Joseph Stalin made Russia strong economically and politically. So 1929, Joseph Stalin becomes the dictator, but he managed to make Russia strong economically and politically. How? So Stalin's aim for economic program was to make Soviet Union, that is Russia, industrially powerful and independent of the West. So he did not want Russia to depend on the West for his economic strength. So he was determined to make Russia catch up with the industrialized countries of the West, such as America, Britain, Germany, as well as France. So he was determined to make Russia great. So there was this program which was called industrialization. So Stalin realized that industrialization and self-sufficiency were required for military greatness. In order for Russia to be great, there was need for industries, there was need for self-sufficiency. So he thought that agricultural improvement was important for industrial expansion and to the population. So he thought that first thing was to improve agriculture, and the profits in agriculture, the profits they would produce in agriculture, they would support the industries or the development of the industries. So with that, then he embarked on modernizing industries. That is, to make sure that the industries that were there, they were modernized. They were using the modern things. Just as we are here in Malawi, you find that we have our local industries, but those ones, they are not modernized. They're still using the same technology that was used maybe 50 or 100 years ago. So in that way, things may not improve because local industries, they have to be modernized. That's why maybe the government is talking of value addition. It is the same thing, the same rice that we grow, the same cassava that we grow, that our forefathers were growing. If we do it the same way they were doing, it means that nothing will change. Nothing will change. But if we try to modernize the same rice, before we sell, we sell in packets. Before we sell anything, tomato, whatever, we process it and we give the users or the customers the end product. In that way, we'll find that we are modernizing our industries. So that was the feeling of Stalin when he thought of making Russia great. So he introduced 5-year plans starting from 1928 to replace the new economic policy. Remember, Stalin introduced the new economic policy, but here Lenin was the one for new economic policy. So Stalin, he says, no, now we are going to have the 5-year plans starting from 1928. So there was the State Planning Commission, which was responsible for coordinating the economic programs in the country. So he set out the State Planning Commission to say, you are special for planning, you are special for coordinating these programs in 5 years, 5 years. So let's see what happened. So there was the first 5-year plans, which ran from 1928 to 1932. So the program, it put much emphasis on heavy industries, such as the production of coal, steel, oil, and heavy machinery and electricity. So these were the focus areas of the first 5-year plans. So dams were constructed for hydroelectric power to supply the new industries. So you can see there he embarked on heavy industries as the first 5-year plan. And from there was the second 5-year plan, 1933 to 1937. So this one focused on heavy industries as well. So this one improved the transport and communication through the construction of railways as well as the canals. So heavy industries for the second 5 years as well, mainly for transport and communication. So there was the railway lines that were constructed and the canals for the ships to be transporting their goods. So production of farm machinery such as tractors and combined harvesters was also increased. So we see here that farm machinery was also included in the second 5-year plan. And there was also the training and education. It also increased to meet the technical support for the industries. While industries are being established, there is need for people to work there. There is need for human resource there. So education is also paramount at that period. So even this time around, we see maybe the government emphasizing on the technical education, introducing of technical education community colleges. The aim is to have industries, or if the industries are there, starting from the local level and maybe going to the national level, they will need for people, the technical human resource there. So if we don't have people, we don't train people, therefore those industries will not develop, will not produce tangible things that are needed by people. And there was the third 5-year plan from 1937 to 1941. So the second World War, this one, it disrupted the plan, because remember, the Second World War broke out in 1939 to 1945. So it was the period of the third 5-year plan in Russia. So it was disrupted by the Second World War. So it was bad there. So the Soviet Union was forced to change the plan to the production of arms like guns, bullets, tanks, military uniform, and the like. So this third 5-year plan, initially, it was meant for consumer goods such as food, radios, bicycles, and the like, so that people's lives should improve. Then came the Second World War, then the plan changed. So you can see there things did not work out well in the third 5-year plan. But there was also the fourth 5-year plan, which was there in 1946 to 1950. So you can see there, it stopped there in 1941. The reason you can see there, because of the Second World War. But after the Second World War, Russia still carried on with the plans. And this was 1946 to 1950 after the war. So this one, it was aimed at raising the agricultural and industrial production, to say, right, the World War disrupted many things. Now we have to refocus on agricultural production and industrial production. So this one, it was achieved within this period because there was trade agreements with the Western countries. After the war, there were those trade agreements that were signed. We looked at some of them at the post-war alliances. There was economic alliances and the political alliances and the like. So Russia worked very hard for low wages. The Russians, they are working very hard for low wages during this period. But it had the consequences that the government was becoming rich. The government was becoming rich, and the people were becoming poor, and their living standards were going down. Simply, the government was embarking on stabilizing its economy after the war. Then there was also the collectivization. So this was a system of joining small farms into large ones for more profit. So small peasants farms, they were joined together to form the large ones, and these ones were called the kolkhoz. So they joined the small farms to form the kolkhoz. So the peasants worked together and did not own the land and sold their produce to the government for or at a very low price. So just as we do here, when we are in the growing season, everyone has his 1 acre, half acre, like that. Then the government said, no, this type of farming will take us nowhere. We have to join all these farms to make one farm. Or you don't have the land. The land is for the government. Therefore, what you are going to do is you farm here. And everything that you are going to produce here, you are going to sell it to the government, but at a very low price. So each collective farm, it was under the supervision of a party, of a local Communist Party chairman. So he was there to look or to supervise the work in the farms or the collective farms in different areas. So peasants themselves, they were given target to produce, to reach, and to reach those targets, they were rewarded with a praise. See, so you see there, they were working very hard. Not that they are going to be paid when they are working, no, but they are working hard to sell at a low price to the government. But if they work hard, those or the people who were supervising in the local work themselves, those ones, they were representing the government. They were just rewarding them with a praise to say, very good. This is a very good farm. Look, this is an exemplary farm, without any maybe tangible reward. So they were rewarded in form of praise. So what happened with the peasants or the kulaks was that they began to kill their animals, to burn their crops, and burn farm buildings and destroy the machines. So the result was that there was chaos, which led to poor harvest and famine. So with that then, millions of peasants, they starved to death, especially in Kazakhstan and Ukraine between 1932 and 1933. So most of them, they died. So the number of livestock also was reduced to half. Then what happened with Stalin was that he arrested and sent the farmers to labor camps if they resisted. So he did it by force because he was already a dictator there, to say, no, this time around you are going to the labor camps.
Simutaya nthawi yanu kufunafuna maphunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani, ajala kalime, ajala kuchwe manyazi, ajala katende yanti, ndipo anthu ophunzira wandi wotumanso kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira, skulu akuyikirani apa mukhala otumidwa.